morning, everyone. I am happy to be joined here with the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Rural Economic Development, Minister Nate Horner. How are you doing this morning?
I'm very good, and it'd be great if you just call me Nate. I appreciate that you did the introduction that way, but you can move to Nate now. But it's great to be here.
Sounds good. Happy to, Nate. Thanks again. So this is the first time that we've been able to host our AGM and conference at the Jasper Park Lodge for the last few years, given to COVID, of course. Is this your first time joining us at the event?
It is, actually. I've been the minister responsible for forestry for almost a year, but this has been my first opportunity, and very excited. We got in last night. We've already had a few meetings, and it's very interesting to have all the players in one room.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know you've absolutely been busy so far, and it is only Wednesday morning. There's more to come. Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to this week?
I think just hearing the perspectives. I've met everyone kind of one-on-one. We've done some different dealings, from signing FMAs to things like that. But it'll just be good to get everyone together and hear the different opinions, maybe on things all in the same room. Just kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to that as well. I know, it's been so long since so many of us have been able to kind of get together and network, or as our CEO, Jason Cripps, would say, have the collision space that we're all looking for. So we're super excited to have that and have you join us for the conference.
Yeah, well, it's the thing I like the best about this industry is how positive it is. And everyone I talk to talks about how they're building their community. These aren't just employees; they're family. So it's such a unique industry, and it's just great to see how that comes out of people's conversations. So couldn't be happier to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I know I always find that we talk about the forestry community, and it really is a community. It really is a family. Everyone seems to know everyone, and there's a lot of that element of community, which is so awesome. In your year so far as Minister of our file, has there been any particular surprises learning about the forestry sector? Anything been, really interesting for you to learn?
Oh, just the complexity, I think.
Yeah.
It's been the big eye opener. There's so many, challenges on a working landscape that the forestry sector has to deal with. But what a great industry for the province. They've set all kinds of records. Export records. We're doing very good on mountain pine beetle. We're working with the other provinces, working with our Indigenous partners. So I think both with industry and the government of Alberta, I think we're in a really good place to come to a great balance as we continually, make sure that we have that balance on a working landscape. So
it's really great to hear you talk about, the working landscape, some of the different partnerships that we're seeing in the sector. I would love to know from your perspective, where do you see the industry going in the future?
Oh, I think the industry is very, very stable. I think that all the players in the industry see a lot of opportunity. And I think a lot of we need to be more efficient. We need to do more with what we have. We're trying to do some things on the value-added side to encourage maybe more domestic use of our lumber. We're still going to be a major exporter, obviously, but I think some of those things just do better with what we're already doing. Mm-hmm. And they're doing such a great side on the environment file. More efficient planting to show everyone that we're taking care of our forests. But yeah, I just think technology's taking us to some different places. They're creating some very unique new products. So yeah, the sky's the limit.
It really absolutely is. And sustainability is at the heart of what we do. So I'm so glad that you touched on that. You mentioned some interesting stuff going on from the value add side of things. I'd love to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, just, I had the pleasure to be in Toco's Athabasca plant, and just to hold an engineered 2x4, and just imagine how much framers would love to use that, especially on their interior framing. And so, yeah, some of those projects I think our products rather will just be real game changers, I think, for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, on the tech side of things, lots of different innovation going on. Have you seen some cool technologies on your mill tours?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think things like that will just continue to improve and become so much more efficient. It's just hard to imagine how quickly that's changing for them. For something that I think stayed very similar for a very long time. and even things like COVID and the supply chain is, made them think differently too about how they configure their mills and how they get from A to B.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I know something that we hear a lot of the times from folks that don't work in the sector or maybe less familiar with the sector is they don't actually see forestry as a high tech. They think we're low tech. They think, we're marching into the bush with an axe and that's about all we've got. Have there been any big surprises for you on the tech side of things?
Well, I'd say for anyone that feels that way to just visualize the optimization of when that wood comes into a mill and how it's just so amazingly efficient and so fast.
Yeah.
Everything just happens so quickly. So yeah, no, I think it's quite the opposite, really.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned some stuff about, the environmental side of things with forestry. Is there anything in particular that you see maybe the forestry doing in the future?
Well, I think they're doing it now, and maybe it doesn't get talked about a lot, but things like Toco's bend not break program, where they're not using glyphosate, and they're using their indigenous communities to keep down certain trees to let others grow. I think things like that are pretty interesting. I don't think they're widely known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you mentioned one of our many members that you've had an opportunity to connect with. And of course, we have a great representation of companies big and small here, quite a lot of variety there. Has there been anything kind of interesting, talking to people from multiple different perspectives? We've got small kind of family-owned businesses that have been around for over 100 years, and then, some bigger multinational corporations.
Oh yeah, no, it's kind of a dog's breakfast. That's kind of what makes it so neat. Some of the first people I got to know a little bit in this file, the Boucher brothers and Vanderwell, private family-run organizations, very tight-knit with their community that have done things right a long time and continue to grow. And their challenges are different. So I think it's helpful from a government perspective to understand that, because they're all trying to navigate regulation. But there needs to be understanding from the GOA, I guess. But definitely appreciate all those different perspectives. I think it's why the industry is so neat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nate, you are 1 year into your role so far. Any big surprises, any wow moments for you?
Probably how much the North especially relies on the industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the glue that keeps most of the rural communities alive. So just the overall importance.
Yeah. I mean, we have, over 70 forestry dependent communities in the province, and largely they are in the northern part. So if you're not kind of in that area, you're not really exposed to it. So it's certainly a surprise.
And I guess another big part of the file is obviously wildfire.
Mm.
And so it's kind of interesting that we're having this in Jasper, considering the fire that's been going on here for a while now. But I think that also speaks to forest management. The feds do leave a little lacking in that regard when it comes to mountain pine beetle and just what they would call mechanical extraction or logging or lack thereof.
Mm.
But we do have to harvest this resource, not only to keep provide jobs and keep these communities alive, but otherwise it will burn.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the balance of this job that I don't know if everyone totally understands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, being here in Jasper right now, fire is very topical, and we're definitely seeing the impacts of mountain pine beetle. You mentioned some of the partnerships kind of working with government to address mountain pine beetle on the provincial level. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, and I think it's been very successful. I think the stat I just read was that trees killed from mountain pine beetle decreased by 80% from 2020 to 2021.
Wow.
But we are part of an agreement with Saskatchewan with the feds, and it's been highly successul.
Mm-hmm.
To the point that the scale of that problem is nowhere near what it was when we started.
Yeah. And
so we think we've actually, although the feds help us fund that program, we think they could learn a lot from it in the forest that they manage within Alberta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to see that partnership that we have with Saskatchewan and how that's been such a proactive kind of element to preventing the spread, further on across Canada.
For sure. Yeah, forests, they don't know the borders there. So We have to think that way
That's
too.
true. Or pine beetles aren't necessarily being mindful of those. Hey,
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. So speaking about, the partnership between Alberta and Saskatchewan to combat pine beetle, are there any other kind of key partnerships that you see as critical for the sector?
Well, our department works closely with our partner to the west, to BC, of course. Although there's very different, regulatory regimes and maybe views toward the industry, but I can say so the answer is yes. We work with everybody, but we do try to be kind of true to how the GOA views forestry as a sector, and we see it as a partner for the province, but one that we want to ensure that access to fiber is a main driver of policy decisions, because we know that's what will keep investment coming in and keep these mills alive, which in turn keeps these communities alive and creates the jobs, but also helps us on the wildfire front. One thing when I talk to colleagues in the northwest of the United States, we meet at a group called Penwar, and wildfire is a big deal. We're seeing from California moving north, a lot of the fires are bigger and harder to control. So a lot of the conversations about technology and procedure, how to deal with that, but at its most basic level, the forestry sector plays a key role in helping us manage the forests, or else fire is an issue we have to deal with.
Yeah, it's certainly a risk, and something that we've seen a lot of. Mentioning our friends to the west in BC, it's been something they've been battling with for a long time, and there's definitely some concern about what we're going to see in the future for Alberta as far as wildfire.
For sure, and it's not something that you can't reinvent the wheel. It's going to get hot. The fire's going to burn. A lot of that's education. There's still, I think, mid 60%, 66, 67% of the fires are human caused. We know that, but it's just part of the balance. So.
Yep, and understanding what other kind of factors there are that are contributing to that, such as pine beetle, such as really large batches of mature forests that are kind of set out in the province. It's waiting to go up.
For sure, and it adds complexity to our tenure agreements, where the trees are, what happens to these companies and operations when a big chunk of their tenure is burnt.
Yes. Yeah. I know the impacts are so much broader. It's not just the forest going up, the smoke that we all have to deal with, but the jobs that are impacted by that, and the communities, for sure, the wildlife.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and it's all kind of holistically intertwined. Whether you're talking about caribou, or you're talking about ability for Indigenous people to exercise their treaty rights, to pine beetle, to wildfire, it's all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
Even for the average Albertan that just wants to get out and enjoy the forests on the weekend. For them just to have that understanding about that's great. We want to make sure you have that access and that enjoyment, but we don't want to create more risk either.
Absolutely. Was that surprising to you when you came onto the forestry file to learn that recreation was something that we consider as well in the plans?
Oh, yeah, it was actually. Yeah. And that's not because I come from a place there's no trees. It's just, just get that understanding that it's about everything.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been so fabulous. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to add that we might have missed?
The thing that I'm excited about is the overall economy of the province right now. And a big part of that is due to the forestry sector, and we've seen some historic highs, and they're down now. But overall, the province is just booming on all fronts, and forestry's played a large role in that over the last couple of years. We have a $13 billion projected surplus in the province. A lot of that is from forestry. Oil and gas lion's share, but forestry too. And looking forward, we're seeing more interprovincial migration into the province. We're seeing every bank and forecaster saying we're going to lead the country in every economic criteria for the next couple of years at least.
Wow.
Forestry plays a big role in that.
Yeah.
And we're seeing investment we talk about housing starts and lumber and what that means for the forestry sector. We're seeing companies like CGC move up to Wheatland County to build a wallboard plant and make this the hub for Western Canada and the Northwest states.
Wow.
So all those things are pretty impactful to forestry.
Yeah.
And so I think just making sure these all the people at this conference this week know that, and I know they do. They're all very smart people, but I guess just they take some credit for it too.
Yeah. Well, I know that's one thing that we're really excited about, talking about the economic impact of the sector so far, but, also looking into the future and how Canada looks to, work on some climate change solutions. There's a huge role, there's a huge opportunity for forestry to be a part of that. And so, I really see our sector continuing on to be critical to the economy and to climate change solutions.
Oh yeah, whether it's economic, whether it's Indigenous participation, whether it's climate change, forestry is a solution to a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And back to that balance, if we don't use it, wildfire is an issue that's increasing. So
yeah, we lose it.
Yeah.
Thank you again. This has been wonderful. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my first podcast, but very, very, very enjoyable.
Awesome. I'm so glad that we could be the first podcast for you.
Very good. Thank you.